What's good out there, Liquid Trucking? Welcome into the Liquid Trucking Podcast, episode 62. I'm your host, Marcus. Glad to have you here today for an episode that I am so excited about, not only because of the stories, but I got to give props here to Jason Eisenman for coming up with the title of this episode. Now, I brought the subtitle, but he came up with the real clever part of this. Today's episode is titled Macdryver, Bubblegum and Duct Tape. For those of you over 40 out there, or in the age range of 40 years old, you might remember an old TV show called Macgyver. And Macgyver, he kind of entered the lexicon past his 1985 action TV series that lasted for 7 years, sorry. So, you're getting into 1992 here, okay? And when you look at some pictures of Macgyver, you'll understand. He's got that Val Kilmer, that middle part, rocking a bit of a mullet, but it doesn't quite hit the collar. So Macgyver was a badass, and all he needed was like a paper clip, some dental floss, and a dream, and the dude could get out of any hairy situation that he was in. And I always grew up knowing, I never watched Macgyver. I was born in 1984. The series launched in 85. By the time I was 7, it was off the air. But what wasn't off the air was calling people Macgyver if they did something really, I guess, unique. If they found a way to hack something or they found a way to farm something. I feel like life hack is kind of an overused term these days because you'll see somebody like on TikTok or YouTube say, hey, check out this life hack. And they'll, completely dismantle a 2-liter plastic bottle and turn it into a funnel. But I already have a funnel. Like, I don't need life hacks for easy stuff. We need life hacks for hard stuff. And that's why a lot of the times you'll hear me use the term farming. Because what farmers do is they take what's in front of them and they make something that wasn't there before. Whether they grow it or they build it or they raise it from a young wildlife. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. But farmers farm. That's what they do. And I've honestly used that term going back 20 years. One of my favorite farmer things that I saw happen was I was in a band. And we had this little 500 square foot 1-bedroom house to practice at. And once we got my drum set in there, once we got 2 guitar amps and a bass amp in there, and once we got a PA in that little 500 square foot room, we didn't have room for anything else, but we needed microphone stands. We needed a place to put this thing that we were going to sing in. So we got some PVC pipe. We got the base of I feel like it was a stand for something, like maybe a stand for like a tall lamp or something like that. We got a broomstick, and we got a shitload of duct tape, and we made ourselves a microphone stand. Was it pretty? No, but it was punk rock, and it worked. And while I'm not mechanically savvy enough to break down in my Chevy Silverado on the side of the road and fix it just because I know all the things that work, I might have been able to do that with a 1972 that I used to have because they hadn't put a computer in it yet. But even then, I could get you in a lot more trouble trying to farm a fix than I could actually solve problems for you. So I'm really excited about this episode titled Macdryver. You got what we did there, little wordplay. Macdryver, Bubblegum, and Duct Tape. This episode is completely about drivers that have found interesting, unique, and very clever ways to fix something so that they can get to the next stop. Because obviously, we want you drivers to have the best gear out there. And with a shop like we run at Liquid, that's obviously something that happens pretty frequently. But unfortunately, we can't expedite ship Bo Whipple out to you if you're in BFE somewhere and you need a fix. So what I've got today are 3 drivers that happen to be pretty mechanically inclined. One of them, Tony Brown, spent 22 years as a mechanic in the military. And Quincy Rich and Travis Ludi, they've got their fair share of fixes under their belt as well. In fact, when I scheduled the interview with Quincy, he sent me a picture of the front end of a tractor that he was currently tearing apart to replace a part. So we've got the authorities on here today. 3 guys on this show that are going to walk you through some of their most famous fixes. And let me tell you, the comedy will ensue, okay? A lot of times when guys figure out this unique fix and we kind of Macgyver something together, we share a laugh about it because it never looks like what you think it would look like. And today, we're going to get to share some laughs. So stay tuned for those 3 liquid drivers coming up just around the corner, talking about their Macdryver, Bubblegum, and Duct Tape moments. And as much as that title kind of came up before, the subtitle especially came up before we'd ever done any interviews for this. Like, we had this episode titled, and then we recorded the episode. Bubblegum and Duct Tape turned out to be a little bit more accurate than what you think. So first, I'm going to bring you my interview with Quincy Rich, and Travis Ludi. Travis making his first appearance on the show. This is a great interview. Lock in and stay tuned for Tony Brown at the back end of that interview. I will admit the Tony Brown interview is a bit bittersweet. Not going to tell you why. Going to make you listen through for that one. But it's a fun episode, and I'm very excited to bring it to you guys. Here it is, Macdryver, Bubblegum, and Duct Tape, episode 62 of the Liquid Trucking Podcast.
Welcome to the gold standard of podcasts for the gold standard of drivers. This is the Liquid Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
All right, time to get to our driver interview segment here on the Liquid Trucking Podcast. Excited to have these next 2 with me, as one of them's joined the show many times before, the other one making his first appearance. And when I sent a text out to all you drivers asking who was handy, who was kind of a Macdryver, if you will, who keeps a pocket full of bubblegum and duct tape to fix things, these 2 guys got in touch very quickly, and I'm excited to have them both here. First off, we're going to welcome back to the show a fellow Oregon Duck fan, liquid driver Quincy Rich. Quincy, how's the wounds? Are you still licking the wounds from that bad loss to Ohio State, or have you recovered at this point?
You know, I'm not going to dwell on it like a Husker fan. I'm going to look forward to next year and keep looking forward. Like I always say, I live my life in the windshield, not the rearview mirror.
Attaboy. I like that. I'm going to come right along with you on that road trip. We'll see you next fall. Also joining the show today, and Quincy, thank you very much for being here. Joining the show today, we've got liquid driver Travis Ludi, his first appearance on the show. Travis, appreciate you being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Now, can we call you an Oregon Duck fan too? Not that this interview has anything to do with football.
Honestly, I don't really watch much football. I'll sit down and I'll watch a game, but other than that, I don't necessarily go for a certain team per se.
Okay. Well, Quincy, I don't know about you, but that sounds like an honorary Duck fan to me.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this much. I know what state he's from, so he's automatically hooking them horns.
I know. He told me. He's a Texas boy. Travis, you're born in Texas. You told me over the phone earlier you fell in love with a Midwest gal and find yourself up in the northern part of that Midwest. Where are you living now, and what brought you to Liquid Trucking? Because I also understand that you haven't been with the company for that long.
So I actually live outside of Fairbank, Iowa, and honestly, what got me here to come to the company was actually Quincy. He haggled me for a good year to come park my truck, sell my equipment, and just come and enjoy it over here. Because I'll tell you one thing: in today's economy, being a one truck operation is hard. It's extremely hard. And, I've been here for about 4 months now, and so far, I've actually enjoyed it quite a bit.
I'm sure you're loving not looking at those insurance payments and fuel payments and tire payments and, all the rest of the maintenance that goes into it when you're an owner-operator.
Oh, you could say that again. That is an understatement.
Travis, we are happy to have you here with the gold standard of drivers at Liquid Trucking, and glad to hear that the first 4 months have been a success for you, and we wish you continued success here with Liquid. The cool part about my job is, from my perspective, Liquid drivers are a happy bunch, man. I get to talk to a lot of you guys, and it's been rarely, if ever, I've heard a Liquid driver what I would call truly pissed off I know it happens, but I don't think we catch you guys like that on the podcast itself. So glad to have another satisfied liquid driver on the show here with us. And Travis, I understand, and we'll get to these a little bit later, that you've got some great fix-it stories to tell us. But I'm going to go with Quincy here first, because Quincy made a very direct statement to me when I was asking you drivers who wanted to come on this show, and that very direct statement was that there is no power tool aside from DeWalt. And being a DeWalt guy myself, I just want to give you the floor, Quincy, because I agree wholeheartedly. My dad's garage is filled up with DeWalt stuff. In fact, he just got a new impact driver, I think, last year for Christmas. And we got a new leaf blower this year. The dude loves the stuff, and so do I. What is it about DeWalt tools that make them a mainstay in your garage, Quincy?
Well, for one, the marketing department, when they first came out with DeWalt tools, hit the nail on the head by making them yellow. Because I tell you what, as you being a man, me being a man, what's the one thing we do? We misplace our tools.
Yep.
And I tell you what, a yellow tool, you can pick it, you can see it anywhere.
It's true.
And that is one reason I like them. But, like you said, your family had it, your dad had it, mine same way. My grandpa had it, my dad had them. It's just kind of like the craftsman tools, the hand tools. Everything just gets passed on the line. They were the American companies. They're not anymore, but you know what? I'm still a fan. Thick or thin, I'm still a fan.
Yeah.
Kind of like, Oregon. Thick or thin, we're here.
There you go, man. I like it. Well, a diehard DeWalt fan, a diehard Duck, a man after my own heart, I will say, Quincy. And, Travis, you had a little bit of a different response. I believe that you said that a chainsaw was your favorite tool in the group. Is that correct?
Actually, impact.
Oh, that was the impact. You were the impact. Sorry.
As a former owner operator, you learn to work on your own stuff, and let's just say, me and cordless impact, no matter what the brand is, we've spent a lot of time together.
Yeah. Oh, those things are great, man. Well, let's dive into that a little bit, Travis, because being out there, a one-man operation on your own, you told me you were hauling livestock and feed. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is, look, I grew up in a farming community. A lot of guys that I know had a semi-truck, and they towed their livestock and hay around and things like that. And very demanding job to not only run the farm, but also deliver things around to, various places. But one thing I know about guys that work on farms, man, there's no shortage of time spent working on equipment and figuring things out, maybe finding a shortcut or two to get around. And I know you've got some stories about that. Can you tell us some times that you went full Macdryver and got out your bubblegum and duct tape and fixed something in an unorthodox way?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll put a disclaimer at first. I'm not a certified mechanic. And, these are some of the times that I am not most proud of, but, it just make you sit there and scratch your head and say, wow, that worked. I'll never forget, I was actually hauling a load of recycled glass out of Durango, Colorado, going to Miller Coors up by Denver for their recycled bottles facility. I was coming up Wolf Creek Pass. A lot of these drivers here at Liquid Trucking, they seem to be very well seasoned. They've been around. They've seen, they've been there. They've done that.
Yep.
So whenever I say Wolf Creek Pass, it is very notorious. It's gnarly. I was going up Wolf Creek Pass, and my truck was overheating, so I pulled over, let it cool off, and I blew an airline off of my air tank up underneath the truck. And at the time, I was a single guy, and I was prepared for just about anything. And I said, how in the world am I going to fix this? What do I have on my truck? Because I don't have any quick connects, nothing. I said, what do I have on my truck to seal this air leak?
Before you tell me, I just want to make sure everybody heard him say that he was single at the time. I have a feeling that plays a very important part in what we're about to find out, and I just wanted to make sure everybody heard it. Please, Travis, continue.
Basically, all I had to seal this airline up with was a condom and a shop rack and a couple zip ties.
And you wouldn't be telling me the story if that didn't work, would you?
Oh. I was there for this story.
Oh, were you?
Oh,
I was on the phone with him.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, would you open his bag of condoms for him or what? How did you...
Oh, no.
oh my God.
Oh, now that is clever, though, because listen, they make those things strong for a reason, all right? And latex is a pretty good synthetic material, so I got to say, I'm pretty impressed with the ingenuity here. Quincy, were you instrumental in helping him come up with this idea over the phone?
I'm pretty sure I was laughing my ass off the whole time. When we were talking earlier, and he said, "Should I tell that story?" That's gold.
Yeah,
you gotta.
Yeah, that was great, man. That was great. So it worked. How long did you have to run with it like that before you were actually able to get it fixed properly, or did you just stick with the solution and let it go until it blew up again?
Well, basically, that was one of those trips that was just a load from hell, as you could possibly say. I've come to find out the place that loaded me up. I still have my skill ticket with me. I carry it with me everywhere in my clipboard, but I was 103,500 pounds. So they overloaded me very well.
Just a little.
And I ended up having more mechanical problems. So I actually had to go take it to the shop, get airbags done, all that mid-trip. So at that time I said, don't judge me, but you're going to find a little present up underneath that truck with a shop rag. Can you put a quick connect on that sucker for me? And they said, oh yeah, no problem. Crawl underneath there, and they're like, just the look on their face was just astonishment.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
I'm sure. And I'm sure when they poked their head out, you said, listen, I've never bought Magnums before, but I'm going to start buying Magnums just in case. Oh, that's too good, man. Well, and I can only imagine the overheating was probably caused by the fact that you were just a skosh overweight, just a tad.
Yeah, it was one of those places that it was a city of Durango recycling plant and they had no scale there, no nothing, and it was just kind of a load and go type of thing. And after getting said mechanical issues fixed, before I went to the unloading facility, I said, you know what? I'm parking for the night at truck stop here. They got a cat scale. I just want to know what I'm weighing, and I pulled on there, and I got my scale ticket. I said, well, that explains some things. And ever since then, I've kept it in my clipboard with me, and it's gone everywhere with me since.
I'm surprised there's not just a series of cages that drops down around the scale when you drive onto it at 103,000 pounds without any oversized load stickers on your truck. I'm surprised they didn't just airlift you to prison right then and there, man.
Well, luckily it was just a cat scale at the truck stop. The lady in the truck stop, she was like, you need to go back to the shipper and take some weight off. And I said, ma'am, I'm pulling the agriculture, hopper trailer and stuff. I said, there's no going back. I've already came over the mountain passes, and given that I'm this far, I'm not going back.
Yeah, right.
You were committed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great one. Quincy, any stories like that for you? I know that Travis has got another one maybe tucked away for us, but I want to give you a chance here because if you were on the phone during that adventure, I imagine you've got a few of your own that you might want to tell.
Oh, I too once pulled a hopper. I was sitting down at Big Sioux Fertilizer in Sioux City, right next to Peterbilt, thank God, and was sitting there getting loaded with potash, dry fertilizer. And I'm sitting there loading, getting out, checking things, and all of a sudden I hear just a big old bang from my truck. Get back in it, and there's air, there's dust everywhere, there's air coming from behind my dash. I don't know what the hell's going on. So I pulled my trailer brake, and the air quit. I'm like, crap, I blew an airbag on the trailer. So go back to the trailer. It's still inflated. I get loaded. Go to leave. I push that in. I can't go nowhere.
Uh-oh.
And I ended up figuring out that the ball valve, the trailer ball valve, the seal went out of it.
Oh,
And I'm
no.
like, crap. I'm sitting in the loadout at Big Sioux. There's other hoppers behind me. I can't move. So I talked to the loader guy. I said, hey, I am shit out of luck. I either get a tow truck here. I said, I'll call him. Called my boss. He's like, yeah. He says, I'll be down there in like a half an hour. I'm like, we ain't got a half hour. These guys are mad. I ran. I don't run, but I ran across their yard, across the railroad tracks, into Peterbilt. I said, I need a set of brake ball valves for a 379 Peterbilt. They said, oh, let's see here. They looked. We ain't got any OEM. I said, what do you got for aftermarket? Oh, we got an aftermarket one. I said, I'll take it. Ran back over, went to put it on. It was a whole new conversion for quick connects. And I had the old school brass, all the old hardware from the factory from 99.
Uh-huh.
Tore the dash apart, had two other guys come up. They're asking what's going on. All of us three had that dash apart. We were in there just taking things apart. When you say bubblegum, I'm the bubblegum man. Because I was chewing bubblegum. We were shoving them in those fittings and just prying those quick connect ends into the hoses, just trying to get them to work.
Right.
I had my dash hanging down. I had the new ball valves just laying there, and I pushed them in, was holding them in my hand, keeping them held, and I drove out of there, scaled out, and drove back a half an hour to my boss's shop to where I could actually fix everything.
Wow. So you really did use bubblegum.
Bubblegum actually was, if you crammed enough in there and pushed that hose in there, it created a good enough seal that you weren't leaking as much air, but you're still leaking a lot.
Yeah, I imagine so. But hey, clever fix, man. So that's great because the title was like, I thought of bubblegum and duct tape. You know, Jason Eisenman actually came up with Macdryver, and I came up with bubblegum and duct tape. And we kind of put those together and like, hey, that's funny. I didn't know you guys were actually out here using duct tape, Quincy, or bubblegum, Quincy. That's amazing. I knew you were using duct tape. But the bubblegum part is you just brought this whole thing full circle. And you got to do all that work on a 99 Peterbilt. I mean, that you were working on a piece of history right there.
I'll just put it this way. I like my new truck.
Yeah, I imagine. You know, it's funny. You hear sometimes some complaints and some gripes about the bells and whistles. But my guess is if you take that same driver that's griping and put him in a 99 Peterbilt 379, he might change his mind in a week's time or so.
Yeah, you call it a piece of history, and I'll tell you this. History belongs in a museum, not on the road.
Yeah, good point. I'm just glad you didn't take it a different way. I thought you were going to call it a piece of something else there for a minute. So, you know, I got to warn you, it's a trucking podcast. You might make some enemies if you were going to say that. So, but glad to hear.
I'm a Peterbilt fan. But
you are? Okay, good to know, good to know. But glad to hear you were able to get it fixed. Was the shop impressed when you got it back to your to the yard? I mean, were they like, hey, nice job, it was a workaround and it worked?
Well, and then it was my brother-in-law and me were the shop.
Oh, okay, so you were just still pissed.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
I tell you what, digging all that out of there was not fun.
No, I can't imagine, man. Do you have a choice preference on the bubblegum department? Is there one that works better than a different one? Are we working with like Big League Chew? Are we Bubblicious? Or is it like that old hard Bazooka Joe that works the best?
You know what? At that time, it was Hubba Bubba, watermelon, strawberry.
Okay.
Old green little square pack.
Yep. And I bet your jaw was hurting when you got done too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it, man. I get it. I often finish my day with a sore jaw. I wish I had an excuse like I was chewing bubble gum to try to, fix my dash. But unfortunately, normally I'm just barking into this microphone. So, Travis, how about another one, man? As you sit there and listen to Quincy, I know it's got to drum up some memories in your head from the days past. You got any other bubblegum and duct tape Macdryver stories for us?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could sit here and we could chat all day long about this. Quincy knows just as well as I know. Hey, he said it, that 99 Peterbilt, it was, a piece of work. I can attest that my truck, it was the 2007 Kenworth W900, and it was the same. It was very well the same, but this one, it's not quite as full of chuckles and laughter and everything like the last one was, but I had a situation where I was delivering a load, and I had a bad drive tire on that truck, and I just needed to get home to where I could go into the tire shop and get a new set of drives put on it.
Mm-hmm.
I was up in Kansas somewhere, pulled into a co-op to deliver the load, and I noticed I had a good-sized chunk of a tire. It was leaking pretty bad, enough for that tire to squat. So I said, well, it's kind of the same ordeal. What do I have on my truck to fix this to get me home? And I ended up having a tube. It's called E6000, and it's basically super glue on steroids, and you can find it at Walmart. And I was walking around the lot while I was unloading, and I happened to find just the right perfect size of gravel or a little flat rock that I could wedge into that hole. And I loaded it up with E6000. I shoved that rock inside that hole on that tire, put some more E6000 on it, let it sit and dry and set. And then I asked the guys at that co-op, hey, you got an airline in your maintenance shop? Oh, yeah. You got a low tire? Yes, sir, I do. I said, yeah, go limp it over there. Aired up the tire and drove like 4 or 5 hours home. Went home for the weekend and put new draft tires on that next Monday.
With a rock and super glue. That super glue sounds like it could be dangerous in the wrong hands. Certain parts of me want them to stop selling that at Walmart, if you want my honest opinion, Travis. I feel like the clientele there could cause some real issues with super glue that strong if they knew it was sitting on the shelf. I'm
telling you, I've glued multiple things with that stuff, and it never budged. It never budged. It's some good stuff.
I have been asked to leave a Walmart in my life one time as a high schooler. I imagine they might ask me to leave if I found some of that and glued a bike to the wall, but I'll be perfectly honest. That sounds like a really fun project to just get in there and try. You got enough Walmarts in your area, you can get kicked out of a couple of them and you still got a place to shop. So that's my experience at least. So what was the name of that glue again?
E6000. It's in a gray tube.
All right. Well, you guys keep quiet about this, but I might have some stories to tell here in the next couple of weeks because I got to go get me some of that. Okay, Quincy, back to you. Any more bubblegum and duct tape, like legitimate bubblegum and duct tape stories for us?
2 duct tape stories. Do you want one from when I drove Peterbilt's or when I worked here?
Well, I guess I'll leave that up to you, because I imagine if you're willing to tell the story that nothing bad came of it when you worked for Liquid.
No.
All right, why don't you tell the Peterbilt story?
So, I was coming back from Adele, Wisconsin, up by Green Bay. It was a pretty just crappy night, trying to beat snow and ice storms. I was coming back along. God, what lake is that? You're like not even a mile from it, running up north of Milwaukee. I get up there, just cruising back to Sioux City, and I blow an air-to-air boot. And didn't really notice it until I started pulling a hill. And pulled over, got out, was looking at it. I'm like, God, it is 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. Ain't nobody going to be able to get anything fixed. I started digging around. I carried almost enough stuff in my truck to overhaul a motor on the side of the road.
Wow.
I'm digging through. I found just enough hose clamps that were big enough, a roll of duct tape. I put the hose clamps around the pair and the air-to-air boot for structural support, and I took a whole roll of duct tape, and I just duct taped over and over and over and over. And it held 6.5 hours all the way back to Sioux City.
Wow. And
never leaked one bit.
And how did the shop feel about it when you got in there? See, that's what I'm the most interested about is, like, do the shop guys tip their cap to you, or do they throw a clipboard at the wall when you have to fix something like this just to get it home?
Yeah, no kidding. It was quite the deal, but it worked. So, I mean, duct tape does work. And then the toolman Taylor would say it is duct tape, not duct tape.
Yep. That's actually, you took a little piece from my childhood there. That is where 100% I learned that it was not duck, like Oregon duct tape. I thought that it was for a good, I don't know. How old are you when you're watching Home Improvement? I was probably 10 or 11. So,
Oh, I was about the same.
Too far through life to not know that, that's for sure. So I'm walking around sounding like an idiot. But great reference, by the way. Tim the Toolman Taylor, one of my favorites when it comes to TGIF, little Friday night television with the family. If you're close to my age, I'm sure you all know exactly what I'm talking about. We got our Full House, our Family Matters, our Home Improvement. Those were the days, man. Those were the days. Well, fellas.
Oh, absolutely.
I love this. Here's a question, because I know, the thing about duct tape is there's about 1 million different brands of duct tape, and they are not created equal, in my opinion. You've got the stuff that won't tear. You've got the stuff that kind of threads out on you, or when it does tear, it just immediately sticks to itself. But then you've also got some things out here like Gorilla Tape, which, again, I feel like if I needed to put a bike on a wall, Gorilla Tape is a good option. I'll go to you first, Quincy, since you're the one that's utilized it for a big fix. Do you have a brand of duct tape that is like your go-to?
Yeah, Harbor Freight duct tape is by far the stickiest. Yes, you can barely get it to unroll.
I love it, and it's probably cheaper because it's at Harbor Freight too, isn't it?
It's very, very cheap. But I was always the fan of the true original duct tape, because I'd always get yellow,
Yeah.
not going towards sports teams or anything here. But I bought a Harbor Freight roll one day, and I haven't looked back. It is by far just the stickiest I've ever, you could stick a bike to the wall.
Okay, well, I would.
You could stick Ryan Day to the wall, and he ain't getting off.
All right. Well, don't tempt me with a good time, because I know where to find. I know right where Harbor Freight is, man. How about you, Travis? You got a brand of duct tape. We've already talked about tools. I'll even go beyond duct tape here and just say, what are some things that, as a handy guy that can fix things with condoms and you name it, what type of stuff are you keeping on the truck? Because we just heard from Quincy. He said he's got enough on the truck to overhaul an engine almost on the side of the road. Are you similar, Travis? And what's like your go-to have-to-have-it thing in case of emergency?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I can definitely attest to the Harbor Freight duct tape. It's definitely, for the price point, 100%. Driving here at Liquid Trucking, honestly, my Cascadia, it doesn't quite have the storage that my W900 did, so I don't carry as much as I used to. And Quincy can attest to this. He's helped me work on that truck plenty of times. I carried a lot of stuff on that truck, and I could probably do just about any roadside repair with it. But going back to the condom and the shop rag, my toolbox I carry with me, it has all of my quick connects. No, don't want to go back to that. Don't want to end up in that same story. I carry a bunch of wrenches and my quick connects and some electrical and obviously my fluids and my tools to do my job. These guys in the shop, they do awesome work, and it's pretty nice to not have to worry about having that headache of having to worry about fixing stuff on the side of the road in an emergency or major event like we've talked here today. Yeah, in general, I don't carry as much as I used to. I just kind of carry my bare necessities nowadays.
Okay. It sounds like, though, it's one of those situations where it only takes once for you to be stranded on the side of the road with nothing but zip ties, a shop rag, and a bag of condoms. That you'd never let that happen again, right?
No, sir. No, sir.
I don't know, actually, Quincy. I feel like maybe next time you guys get in the lot together, you go swipe those things out of his truck and throw some condoms on the seat just so we can see if he can do it again. Because, doing it once is really impressive. Doing it twice, you might be entitled for a record somewhere or something like that.
I got a story to tell you off the air when we're done.
Oh, damn it. Those are my favorite and also my least favorite because I can't air them. But I'm looking forward to it. That's great. Well, you know what? You mentioned something there, Travis, that I want to touch on because we don't ever get to talk to the guys from the shop because they're so busy doing so much work. But anytime a driver shouts out the shop like you guys just did there and says they do great work, I like to take a quick minute and just say hats off to the shop at Liquid Trucking, everybody in there. We know that you're busy. We would love to have you on the show when there's time, obviously, and when it works with your schedule. But just one hell of a group of good guys in there that are busting their ass every day doing great work for the fleet. And since we don't get to talk to him on the podcast much, I like to shout it out when a driver mentions it. So thanks for bringing that up there, Travis. It's a phenomenal team. And look, I got to look at your situation kind of individually here, Travis, and say you used to be the guy. Like you were the shop team. So it's got to feel pretty good to have a whole crew behind it now.
Yes, it definitely in the short term of it, it's taken a lot of stress off of me and brought a lot better health to my well-being of not having that stress. And, it's one of those things, the truck breaks, call them up, say, hey, and they take care of it. And,
right.
Compared to having the stress and the financial stress and the mentality stress of everything of having that truck all on your shoulders, man, I have to say, what a world of difference of not having to worry about that no more.
I'm sure. Well, Quincy, listen, you worked on him for about a year to get him over here. I bet you could get him over to the side of the Oregon Ducks in 6 months or less, because I'll join forces with you. We can double up on him if we need to. I've got his number now.
Oh, absolutely. That's easy.
Awesome, fellas. Well, listen, I really appreciate the time as always. Travis, I hope the first time on the show was good for you. In fact, I'll go ahead and put you on the spot once here. First time on the Liquid Trucking podcast after only 4 months with the company. Your thoughts on our little show that we've got here?
Honestly, I was kind of nervous. Quincy knows me very well. I kind of get nervous of doing stuff like this, kind of on the spot. Honestly, not as bad as I thought. I another good topic comes up that you can scratch my brain with. I'd be more than happy to come back and do it again for sure.
Perfect.
We'll get you on the air with Matt Cleach, and we'll see if you have the same response or not. Shout out to Matt.
You mean shot across his bow is what you mean there.
A swing and a miss.
Well, listen, I will tell you this, and it's happened many times in my life, Travis. Every time somebody comes back to me with to tell me about an experience on this podcast and they say, not as bad as I thought, I think, hey, I'm okay with that. I take that as a win. Anything positive. So we appreciate having you on here. I'll come back to you in just a second because I want you to listen to Quincy for this last part. This is something I do every single interview here with drivers. I like to give you guys the floor if you've got anything to say to anybody that might be listening, be it other Liquid Trucking employees, family members, friends. The floor is yours. Quincy, take it away.
Oh, like you said, giving the shop a shout out this time of year, especially with all the freeze up and everything we got going on. Big shout out to Bardo's shop, to John, Alex, Danny, and our new boy from OFC. We got him transferred up here, Gavin. I tell you what, he's fitting in just perfect here at Bardo.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Big ups to the shop out there at Bardo and also the shop out there at Plattsmouth. And Quincy, thank you for the time, man. Really appreciate it as always. And GDYSOB, as we say. You guys are going to have to go back and tune into the college football podcast if you want to know what that acronym's all about.
Better get your wife to make a tattoo for that.
You know what? She's actually working. She just finished concepting my first Ducks tattoo. So I'm guessing here within the next couple of weeks, I will be inked up and official. I'll definitely send you a picture of it, all right?
Absolutely. I'll be looking forward to it.
Awesome. Travis, thank you so much for being here, man. You did great, by the way, for your first time. You didn't strike me as nervous at all. Really appreciate the time. Anything that you would like to say to anybody that might be listening before I let you get out of here?
Honestly, I'll back up Quincy, with the shop ordeal, but also shout out to our wash bay as well, because these guys, from our trucks, our trailers, and even outside carriers coming in this time of year with frozen product, frozen trailers, valves, you name it. Those guys are working double time as well, so shout out to them as well.
Absolutely. We love the guys over at the Tank Wash doing great work and terrifying work, if I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think I was claustrophobic until I peeked down into one of those tanks from the catwalk, and turns out I'm a little bit claustrophobic, so would not want to be in there doing their jobs, and we appreciate them greatly for it. Another group of people we don't get to talk to on here very often because of the workload that they've got. Quincy Rich, Travis Ludi, thank you guys very much for being on the show today. Please be safe out there. We'll get you back on next time, okay?
All right, thank you. Sounds good.
Back at you with more Macdryver, Bubblegum, and Duct Tape stories here on the Liquid Trucking Podcast. Thanks for being with us today. Joining me now on the show is somebody I've had on this show a lot of times, and I'll be 100% honest with you. It's going to be a little bittersweet this time, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. Please welcome Liquid Driver Tony Brown to the show. Tony, glad to have you back, man. How you been?
Oh, I've been great, Marcus. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Well, we love having you on the show, man, and this is a good one for you, actually, because, going back to episode 22 of the Liquid Trucking Podcast, we had Tony on for an episode called Gearheads, What Drivers Drive While Off the Clock, and I just know you to be a Mr. Fix-It, and I know that you have a lot of project cars going. You're always got something that you're rebuilding there, and when that happens, a lot of the times you need some bubble gum, some duct tape, some zip ties. We found out in the last segment that condoms are an oft-used thing, apparently. So, I just wanted to get you on here and hear some of your stories of when you really were bubble gum and duct taping it through a project, or maybe even on your truck so that you could get to your next stop.
Okay, so I'll go back in time here a little bit. One of the probably most epic and funny ones I ever had was I was still in high school, and me and some buddies had been out four-wheeling. And we're out playing in the mud, in and out of the river, going up and down these trails. And one of the guys, buddy of mine, he had a not a hard body, Nissan, but an old Toyota pickup, same body style as the one from Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah.
That Marty McFly had.
Yep.
Everybody's dream truck.
Oh, yeah, man.
Those things are outrageously expensive now.
Well, the one thing I'll say about them is they'll go for 1 million miles, it seems like, because I still see them out there on the road. In fact, a guy that was a desk manager at a car dealership that I used to work at. So a guy that makes plenty of money to buy a brand new vehicle that he'll get a discount on was still driving one of those trucks to work every single day. And he would swear by it. I mean, the paint was falling off of the thing, but it ran great, Tony. So I know what truck you're talking about. Very familiar.
Yeah, they're amazing trucks, but they do have their breaking point. They have their limit. This thing it hadn't been well taken care of to begin with. It was an old farm truck, and we were just out wheeling and bashing. I had my K5 Blazer. He had his Toyota there. Another friend of ours had a Bronco out there. We were constantly having to pull out. He couldn't keep it from getting stuck. That's Ford for you.
I'll tell you, my dad's going to listen to this, and he's going to bite his lip when you say that, because he was an old Bronco enthusiast. And, look, they're beautiful rigs, but I'll tell you what, I wouldn't take one of the new ones off-road, that's for sure.
No. Well, it didn't help that he didn't exactly have the best tires for it either. We'll give him credit on that. He was trying the best he could with street tires, while the rest of us actually had off-road mud and snow tires.
Okay.
For that kind of stuff. But getting back to it, so we're hitting one of the trails. I mean, it's just rough. We're getting slung around, and he comes to a dead stop. Can't move. We're like, what's going on? We get out, we're all looking to see what's going on. His drive line had come out of the back of the transmission. So that's the first thing we see.
So just a little bit of a rough trail. Like, you're just getting thrown around a little bit, right?
Well, we're like, how did this fall out of the back of the transmission? Well, that's when you notice the back of the transmission is also almost touching the ground.
Oh, no.
The transmission mount, the cross member, had completely snapped from the rust.
Oh, no.
And so it was hanging down. So this is where a nice spool of baling wire that he had in the back of his truck came in handy. We probably used 50 feet of baling wire and held his transmission up and got it centered the best we could, wrapped it around the frame, around the tail housing of the transmission, hung some in a couple of other spots. This was our sophomore year in high school.
And your real tour de force in bubblegum and duct tape engineering here, it sounds like. I mean, this was
I grew up on a farm, so yeah, this was standard practice.
Right.
If you didn't have duct tape and baling wire in your truck or on the tractor, you were in trouble.
Sure.
Well, yeah, this was our sophomore year of high school. He still never replaced that when we graduated, our senior year, and we graduated, he still had baling wire transmission mount.
Unbelievable. And it's still, that rig was still running, I bet. He probably drove it to graduation.
He did. He said, as long as he didn't go over 57 miles an hour, to be specific, he didn't go over 57, it wouldn't shake him to death.
And for those of you listening that wonder, how did you find 57? High school boys have got that kind of time in farming communities, okay? We'll take it out there. We'll test drive it. We'll see what shakes your teeth out of your skull. It was for us, it was always finding out when they governed out. Just want to know.
We had a road for that down by the river, Old River Road. It was a mile stretch, and you had to see how fast you could get up in that mile, because at the end of that mile was a goat trail, because it came to a T intersection, and if you missed that goat trail by a foot, you were in one neighbor or the other's pasture.
Oh no. I love it, man. Back in, I think it was around 2004, so I would have been either a senior in high school or just out of high school. My mom bought a new Chevy Trailblazer. They don't make them anymore. Pretty cool looking rig. She, it was in that time, she dropped some 20s on it, some nice chrome 20s, and she was very excited. I think this thing had about 200 miles on it when she gave me the keys, and I took it out and took friends out. We went for a cruise up to the lake and back, and I'll never forget. I didn't do this, all right? This was just me being a devious son, but she when I walked back in, she goes, "What'd you think of Mom's new ride?" Hey, man, it's pretty nice, but it governs out at 99 and the whole thing shuts down. And I just threw her the keys back and walked out of the room. And I remember feeling like this energy, like this nervous but also angry energy building behind me. I quickly had to tell her, hey, I'm just joking. I don't know when it governs out, even though I'm pretty sure it's at 97. So,
what year was it?
I believe it was a 2004.
Should have topped down at 105.
105. Okay. Well, I'm glad I should have had you there. We would have had a better joke, man, because if she would have called the dealership, they'd have told her I was right.
The only reason I know this is GM governed most of their vehicles from mid 90s up through almost 2010 at 105.
Which seems low if you're going to ask me.
I had a 96 Pontiac Grand Am SE Sport Coupe, 2-door. This thing was beautiful, hunter green metallic. The only problem was it just had the weak little quad 4 in it.
Oh, okay.
And it was governed at 105. And
did it ever get there? Or would you have to be going down a pretty steep hill?
Oh no, it would get there, and it'd get there quick.
Really?
It was surprisingly it was a quick car for its size, and for the horsepower over weight ratio was pretty surprising.
Sure. Well, I had one of my best friends had a Trans Am, and it did not have the small engine in it. And his favorite thing to say about it when he tossed you the keys is talk sweet to it or it'll kill you. And
yep.
I guess he's right, huh?
Yep. Absolutely.
I love that story about the baling twine, because that's one thing that we actually haven't talked about yet in this episode. I did have a story, and you'll hear this obviously when the episode drops, but I talked to Quincy Rich and Travis Ludi right before I talked to you, and Travis had a story about fixing an airline with a condom and a rag and some zip ties.
Yep.
Quincy,
that can be done.
Quincy had a story about actually plugging an air leak with bubblegum, using double bubble and just shoving it down in there until he wasn't leaking so much air that he couldn't go. I never thought about it, but baling wire seems like a really good thing to have on your truck. Do you carry any of that just in case of a crazy emergency?
I did. I actually did. I carried a small spool of fencing wire. It was basically the same thing as baling wire.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a little, the gauge on it was just a little smaller than typical baling wire, but it was baling wire.
It's going to work all the same if
say.
you needed to tie your transmission to the bottom of your Toyota, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So how about any times where you really had to farm a fix when you're driving for Liquid or any other big rigs that you've driven? Have you ever been stranded out there and had to figure out a quick fix out of just what you had on the truck and kind of tack it together until you could get it home safe?
I have. So when I first started with Liquid, I was in a Volvo, and the air ride seat on my truck was bleeding air off of the truck. And I could hear it going down the road, just hiss, 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 because it had got pinched underneath the seat.
Oh, okay.
So I made a quick stop at I was out in the middle of nowhere at this little gas station, and they happened to have some hose clamps. So I picked up a thing of hose clamps and some duct tape, or not duct tape, but electrical tape. And I went back out there. I found where the split was at in it, and I just taped the holy piss out of it. And then I took 3 hose clamps, one directly over where it was leaking, and then one on either side of it, and just squeezed the piss out of it until it quit leaking.
Mission accomplished, it sounds like.
And the thing is, I think I went with that for about 2 or 3 months before I finally remembered to tell the shop, oh, by the way, I got a pinched airline underneath the driver's side seat. And they got it now. As soon as I told them, they're like, oh, okay. They replaced that section of hose.
Right. In a heartbeat, which, we've already talked about how good the shop is. They'll take care of that stuff in a heartbeat. But I want to ask you, were they impressed with the fix-it job that you did?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I'm pretty sure one of them said, well, if it works, it works. So
yeah, there you go. That's a good mindset to have.
Yeah. I mean, as long as the truck was running, I wasn't too worried about the air pressure necessarily, because it was building more pressure than it was leaking out.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was stopped and had shut the truck off, I'd have to sit there and wait for it to build air pressure, because it was just leaking all the air out.
And if you start off on a trip without that air pressure, you just fire up the truck and get moving. That ride for you is just punishing, I would imagine, correct?
Well, it doesn't bother me too much, because I don't put any air in the seat anyway.
Oh, okay.
I have the seat slammed to the ground.
But some drivers, it would really bug them.
Well, because the problem for me is because I'm so short, I'm taller in the torso than I am in the legs. So if I put any air in the seat, I look like a midget sitting on a bar stool. I can't reach the floor or the pedals. Unless I slide the seat all the way up against the steering wheel before I could tap the pedals. So it's like, nope, I'm just setting this on the floor where I can reach the pedals.
I think we come up with a new CB handle for you right now. We're going to call you Baby Legs.
Baby Legs? Yeah. I've been called Smurf for a long time.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Tanker Smurf, I know that one well. So that's great, man. Well, no offense with the baby legs thing, man. I'm not a tall human either. I know what it feels like to sit in a regular sized chair and have your feet swinging. It's quite embarrassing.
Well, what's crazy is I have a younger brother who outweighs me by about 200 pounds. He's a big boy, but he is real. It's hard for him to buy clothes, because he's got to go to the big and tall, because he's real tall in the torso. His inseam is actually shorter than mine, and he's 6'2".
Wow. So he's actually baby legs. You can be toddler legs.
Yes,
he's baby legs.
Yes. He looks like, what do you want to call it? They were on the original Mario Brothers movie. The Goombas.
Goombas.
The Goombas.
Yeah, Goombas.
Yeah, all body, no legs. And that's what we always called him, was Goomba. Because he wasn't much smarter than one either.
Oh man, don't tell him about this podcast, man. You're really giving him the riot act here.
Oh no, he would find it hilarious.
Oh man, that is so funny.
I've had to do all kinds of just little simple fixes. So being the mechanic that I am in the trade, I was a mechanic for in the military for almost 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
and I ran local for 6 months, and we did a lot of off-highway driving because we hauled dirt and gravel, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a lot of rough terrain. Trucks were constantly breaking. A lot of times they didn't want us fixing it ourselves unless we absolutely had to. We had a shop truck that, because we were usually within a 50 to 100-mile range, they'd send a shop truck out and repair the truck.
Mm-hmm.
But I've kept, from my knowledge base, I know what tools and spare parts to keep with me in the truck. I keep extra airline of 2 different sizes. I keep different brass fittings. I keep all kinds of extra stuff in the truck along with my tools because I know what it takes, because I've had multiple airline leaks on trailers
mm-hmm.
where it's just airline setting at a connector, not even at the connector, but just at just a little support piece that just holds it from rubbing against stuff, and it actually rubbed a hole in it right there.
Right.
And
yeah.
I've had to cut it and splice it, and luckily I had the tools with me to be able to do it right there on the spot. So I got with the trailer shop and talked to Bo. I was like, hey, can I get some extra fittings and some hose in case I have to make any more of these repairs like this? He goes, absolutely. So he cut me off about a foot or so of 2 different sizes of the hose, got me a couple of brass fittings, charged them to one of the trailer that had broke, the last one that had broke the airline. So I keep that stuff stored in the truck with me.
That's a great idea. And, it's interesting because Quincy and Travis both told us that they carry enough extra stuff on the truck to almost do a full engine overhaul on the side of the road if they really needed to. And it sounds like you're much in the same.
Yeah. It's just, if it can save, so the way I look at it is our time is money.
Mm-hmm. Very much
and the longer I'm sitting waiting for a service truck to come out and fix me, the less money I'm making.
Right.
Yeah, I'm still getting paid while I'm broke down, but I'm not making the same amount as I would as if I was on that drive line moving.
Yeah.
So I want to keep rolling. So if I've got the stuff to fix it myself, and what I like is I could charge some of that maintenance time on a pay sheet for doing my own repairs.
Gotcha.
So say it took me an hour to fix that airline. Well, I just put 1 hour of repair time on my pay sheet versus, so that's $20 versus $5, $6, $7, $2,000
right.
for a service truck to come out and do the same repair.
Sure. Well, and let's face it, being that this is one of your hobbies, this is something you did for 22 years in the military, you kind of strike me as a guy that likes the challenge and likes to get in there, take things apart, see if you can fix it. Like you're kind of, that's something that you look forward to if it happens to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I was one of those kids growing up when I was younger that I was always taking stuff apart to see how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And then making sure that it went back together and still worked. Or if it was broke, taking it apart to see what broke, like little radios and stuff like that, and seeing that it was just a wire that broke loose from the soldering.
Yeah.
I would fix that at 7, 8 years old. I was doing stuff like that on my own.
Wow. So this has always just been kind of right up your alley. And listen, I'm sure that Bo Whipple there in the shop appreciates it. It's probably something that he likes, having somebody come up and ask, hey, can I get some pipes and some extra airlines and some extra fitting? I'd like to save myself and you some time on the other end of this trip.
Yeah. And then, of course, after I've made any repairs like that, I'll call the shop and let them know, hey, this is what happened. I did this repair. So that way, the next time it comes through the yard, they can double check it and make any further repairs as need be.
Right. And I'm sure that comes from you and your experience as a mechanic, because if one of your guys that was out driving one of your rigs when you were in the military said, hey, I fixed it, everything's fine, that thing's not coming back and getting parked without you looking it over just to make sure that this guy didn't do something catastrophically wrong. That's kind of the same thing that you're giving the liquid shop in that communication, is saying, listen, I fixed it, it's fine, but you should definitely take a look at it because you're the shop guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Communication's everything, man.
Yeah, communication is key. Because I've never been the most book smart person, but I am very hands on. See, there I go. I just took a total brain fart starting to smell in the truck.
Well, listen, I might be able to finish the thought for you there. You say you're not very book smart, but again, I could put a book of how to take this 350 apart in front of you, and you wouldn't even need to open it. I hate that term book smart because everything is in a book. I've had people that are some of the greatest chefs I've ever met tell me they're not book smart. Dude, you learned how to do this reading cookbooks. Stop that bullshit. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. So when I was in the military, we always had TM manuals, which were called technical manuals.
Uh-huh.
Every piece of equipment has a technical manual, and that is the step-by-step on how to do. And there's different levels. There's a 10 level, which is the basic level. There's the 20 level, which steps up. Then there's 30 level, which is the shop's ability of what shop can do what level of repair.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So anytime we were working on a piece of equipment, it is regulation that you have to have either the physical paper book open, or you had to have it. We also had it on computers. Mm-hmm. So you had to have it open, and you had to have it open to that section that you were working on. And quite often we'd be working out there in the shop. We knew what we were working on. We would take the book, open it to the section we were working on, and never touch the book again.
Yeah, exactly. Because you guys knew it like the back of your hand at that point, I'm sure.
Well, and it wasn't just that, because the first couple of times you're going through the book and you're following it step by step, and it's telling you how to take this apart so that you can get to this. You're like, wait a minute. If I skip that and go over here, take this off, which is way easier, I've got direct access to it. I don't have to take the whole side of the engine off if I just take this one pump off.
I see. So they weren't necessarily the most efficient direction in these technical manuals.
Well, yeah. Mechanics don't like engineers.
Gotcha. Yep, I've heard that many times, and who cares what the engineers think, right? We're here to talk to the mechanics today. So
one of the things that was a common knowledge for a lot of us as mechanics was the book is a way, it's not necessarily the way.
Gotcha. Okay, I like it.
So as long as we had that book open, because if the right person comes walking through and wants to know what we're doing, we have to be able to walk over to that book or the computer and tell them this is what we're doing. This is the step.
Gotcha.
This is the step we're on.
Right. Well, I can imagine that part of the job was probably a little bit of a headache from time to time, just remembering to get the book out and open it up, especially knowing that you weren't going to be reading anything in it.
And to be honest with it, we probably only did it maybe 15, 20% of the time did we ever have a technical manual open.
That's all about knowing who's on base, right?
Typically, the most used manual was the -P, which is the parts manual.
Ah, okay.
Because every piece of equipment has all its TMs, but then it also has a -P, which is the technical manual parts. So all the parts that go along with that piece of equipment.
Got it. So kind of like the IKEA manual. Like you open it up and it shows you all the little bags of stuff that you've got to work with?
Yes.
Got it. Well, Tony, this has been awesome, man. I've loved hearing about these. I always think it's fun to listen to clever ways that people hack their way around this life. And whether it be condoms, bubblegum, or baling twine, there are more ways to skin a cat, as we might say, than one. So, I appreciate you for coming on here and walking me through some of these stories, but we got to turn the corner a little bit on this interview because while we have some time left, I did tease I did tease this a little bit in the intro that it's a little bit of a bittersweet interview for me and you, and I want you to tell the listeners why, because it doesn't really concern me, but it does concern you greatly. So there's a second reason you're on with me today, and the floor is yours.
I am. So I don't know how to start this other than this is me wanting to show my gratitude to the company and to say thank you, not just to the people in the office, but a lot of the drivers that I've dealt with, worked with, got to help, that have helped me. It's been an experience, but unfortunately my time with the company has come to an end. I've got some personal things going on at home. I am trying to gain custody of my daughters, and being over the road is not going to help with that. With speaking to my attorney, it's going to be very difficult for a judge to grant me custody of my daughters if I'm not home.
Mm-hmm. Understandable.
So, and going through the court process, I need to be readily available, go appear in court when need be. So, unfortunately, I do have, be saying farewell to the company. I have absolutely loved it. If it wasn't for this, there's kind of two reasons, but this is the primary reason I wouldn't be leaving. I wouldn't be saying goodbye. 3 years ago, because January 14th made my 3-year mark.
Oh, okay.
With OFC.
Happy anniversary. I wasn't aware of that.
That's okay. But thank you. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. It's had its ups and downs, but the downs have never been bad enough to turn it on its lid completely and leave it there. I've always been able to overcome any of the adversity.
Adversity. Yeah, you said it. You got it. You got it out the first time.
I almost said anniversaries, but it's been a pleasure driving for this company. Like I said, it's got its highs and its lows, and that's usually mountains and valleys. I hate mountains and valleys, but it's been a great company, and I wish I didn't have to leave, but because of the circumstances, I do have to hang it up. I'm gonna be going back to local. This is gonna rub somebody wrong, I already know, but I'm going to drive a real truck again.
And what do you mean by that? Catch us all up here.
So I've already been promised and guaranteed I get my 1992 Peterbilt 379 day cab with the B Series Cat conversion, the Mac axle conversion, the Super 10 manual transmission. This thing will climb trees and pull houses down at the same time. Wow.
Well, a couple of guys I had on here before were talking about their old Peterbilt 379s, and there wasn't a 92. They had a 99 that got that airline fixed with the condom and the wire ties, if I'm not mistaken. But an iconic truck for sure. And
yes.
And you think you're going to be happier in that truck than you are in the one that you've got currently?
It's not as comfortable. I will give it that. I will admit it's not as comfortable of a ride, but that truck is not meant to be. It's not meant for comfort.
Right.
That truck is a work truck.
And you're not going to be out in it as long for giant stretches of time, so you don't necessarily need it to be as comfortable.
Yeah, about 8 hours a day is about all I'm going to be in that truck, but I'll still be hauling everything from end dumps, belly dumps, flatbeds, and tankers.
Wow. Really
I'm going to be their I'm going back to them. They're going to make me their general purpose driver because I'm one of few that the company has with a tanker endorsement.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be doing quite a bit of that stuff. They're just pulling water out of saltwater tanks at oil wells and stuff like that.
Okay.
Be running a pump truck every once in a while. So because I have my tanker endorsement, I'll be doing that stuff.
Listen, Tony, I want to tell you this, man. It is bittersweet because we hate to see you go, but at the same time, knowing that this was not like a contentious breakup here or anything, knowing that Liquid values your service as a driver and you value them as an employer, and knowing that everything is good and you're doing this because it's going to improve your life in the long run. If you can get custody of your daughters, you can spend more time with them, be home with them. Man, it's all good things. It sucks that we're not going to get to hear from you on the podcast anymore, but at the same time, I'm pulling for you, and I know that I'll still get to keep in touch with you personally, and that's a bit selfish on my end, but,
Oh, no, that's all right, because I still plan on, and I'll have to tell you something else about that here in a minute. I still plan to come up and watch some Cowboys cook some duck.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll look forward to it, absolutely, because that's coming up. I think we got Oklahoma State coming to Eugene next year, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe the year after, so you and
August.
Okay, perfect. Well, you and I are going to stay in touch then, man, and I want this to kind of, I guess, a peek behind the curtain to some of the other drivers out there that don't come on the show very much, but you have been on before. Tony and I, much like many other Liquid drivers, have formed a relationship outside of the podcast. And do we talk all the time? No, not at all. But we text each other back and forth. We're sending each other pictures. We're doing all that. And that's part of what we do here on this podcast, which is one of the reasons that I was really happy when Jason and Nick were okay with you coming on, because it's kind of a farewell. And for you and I personally, it's kind of a see you soon. But for you and the company, I wanted to give you a chance to say your piece, because what you said about Liquid, I think, stands true for a lot of drivers out there, man. It's a great company to work for, and they're sticking around.
They really are.
They're sticking around if they can.
They absolutely are. And, in 6 years, when my daughters are 18 or whenever they decide, they're old enough and they want to move out, who's to say I don't come back?
Well, I'm sure they'll be glad to hear that, just based on some things I've heard behind the scenes. And, we're not here to give up state secrets or anything like that. But, Tony, if that happened, I'm sure that it would be great to have you back on. And if we still have a podcast at that point in time, which I sincerely hope and believe that we will, you bet your ass you're coming back on it, so you can tell everybody how bad the Cowboys got their asses stomped when they came to Eugene, Oregon.
Okay, so I told my wife what my plans were. She goes, well, you can go up there by yourself. I have no desire to go to Oregon. I was like, why not? She goes, because I don't want to hear you crying the whole way home.
You make sure she's got my number, okay?
My wife is an absolute savage.
Man, we should have had her on the show. Oh, that would have been great.
She actually tried calling me right after you did.
Oh wow! So I see where I sit.
I was like, sorry. I'm on the phone with Marcus, and she replied to my text message with a middle finger emoji.
So okay, don't give her my number then. I take that back.
Oh, it was just directly meant for me.
Okay, all right. So, well, good to know, Tony. Well, listen, man. From me personally, I want to thank you for all the time that you've dedicated to this podcast. I say it all the time. We depend on you drivers to add to the content, want to take part and participate. And since the very first time you and I talked, we have had a great relationship, and we've gotten you on this podcast a bunch. And it's been very valuable to us here as an operation, but even more so just to me personally to know that I feel like I made a friend out of this deal, and I can say that many times over for multiple Liquid drivers. But thank you. I really do appreciate all the time and effort and scheduling and everything that goes into this. You've been right there the whole time, man, since the very beginning, and we wish you well. I wish you good luck. I hope that everything comes together for you, and winning custody of your daughters. Know that even though it doesn't mean much, we're in your corner and we're pulling for you, because we know what kind of guy you are here on this podcast, Tony, and we just wish you the best from start to finish, man, wherever your journey takes you next.
Thank you, Marcus. I greatly appreciate it. And I want to say thank you as well, because this podcast wouldn't be what it is without the human aspect that you bring.
Thank you.
You are a very outstanding person. I can't think of another podcast host that could do it any better, to be 100% honest. I ain't trying to blow no smoke. I just don't think there is.
Thanks,
I don't think there's anyone that could do it better.
Thank you.
And to make everybody feel the way that you do when we do these podcasts, that's why people want to keep coming back.
Well, listen, it takes a community, and I feel like we've built a very strong one, man. And the only reason, I know this is going to sound like you and I just taking credit and handing it back and forth to one another here, but I try to remain as humble as I possibly can here. It's a great group of people that I get to work with every single day, and trust me, I've worked with not great groups of people doing exactly this type of work. And it is night and day difference. Every time I meet with Jason and management, anybody from management, they're super excited to contribute things for us to talk about to the podcast. Any driver that I get on with, have I had drivers tell me no from Liquid? 100%. But they're always very kind about it. Nobody ever tells me F off, forget you. Everybody says, I'm going to politely decline, and these are my reasons, but I really appreciate the opportunity. that type of professionalism is not found in every single workplace that you go to, and Liquid has it in spades, and so do you, Tony, and I thank you for all that kind of stuff. You're almost making me well up here, because when you feel like I do that for you, I feel like you guys do it for me. Like, this podcast would not be what it is without you guys. So, this is a big digital hug that we're giving to each other as we say, see you around rather than farewell, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Tony, we got to wrap this one up. Again, I greatly appreciate all the time, all the stories, all the laughs we've shared, man. We will see you around the bend for sure. And if there's anything left that you want to say to our Liquid family before we let you go for the last time, floor is yours, buddy.
Okay. So I'm just going to kind of broken record here. Again, I have to say thank you to everyone, absolutely everyone, from the office to the maintenance, to the truck shop, to the trailer shop, to the wash bay. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. This last 3 years has been literally life-changing. It's done a lot for my family. You guys have helped make it possible. And I just want to say thank you. I will never forget it. Till we meet again.
Till next time, Tony Brown, Liquid Driver, moving on to bigger and better things for now. Hopefully, we'll get to talk to you on this podcast again sometime in the future, Tony. But if not, you've got my number. I expect to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm still going to be listening to the podcast every Wednesday. There's nothing going to stop me from doing that.
Okay. Well, we'll try to put little Easter eggs in there for you every now and then, okay?
All righty. I appreciate it. Oh, and sorry about your Oregon Ducks this year.
Hey, you don't get to talk about them until you're sitting in Eugene next August, okay? You just keep that team out of your mouth. I'm pulling a Will Smith on you. Keep my team's name out of your mouth. All right, Tony. Thanks again, man. Farewell to you. Be safe out there. We know you're still going to be on the road. We know you're listening. Thanks again, man. Like I said, hopefully we'll talk again soon right here on these airwaves.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Marcus.
All right, Liquid Trucking, that's going to put the brakes on this episode, and maybe the baling wire, the condoms, the bubblegum, and the duct tape as well. What a fun episode that was, albeit we didn't say goodbye to Tony Brown. We said see you around. I really hope everything works out great for him. As I said, great guy. Just one example of all of the great people we've got working here at Liquid Trucking. I say it all the time. I know that I'm preaching to the choir when I do say it. But I also know that there's some people out there that are shopping around for a better gig, and they might be listening to the Liquid Trucking podcast when they're shopping. So I want them to hear it. I want you guys to hear that are listening to this, a guy that's leaving the company on his own volition and saying all the great things he said about it. There's no hard feelings. There's no contention whatsoever. We really enjoyed having Tony Brown on the show as much as we did, and God willing, we'll get to talk to him again sometime in the future. We wish him well in all of his endeavors, and thank him for the 3 years of time that he spent here with Liquid Trucking and our fantastic family of trucks and office staff members and shop and tank wash. I mean, top to bottom. Everybody in this company is great, and I'll say it over and over again on this show. And if you want evidence of it, just ask me in a few weeks how many times I've talked to Tony Brown after we did this interview. I guarantee you it won't be zero, okay? That's a good dude right there. There's a lot of you out there that are just like that working for this company. Quincy Rich, Travis Ludi, I can say the same thing about those two guys. Had a great time talking to them and laughing about their fixes. Man, who would have thought? You're out there trying to play it safe all the time when you're trucking, but in the dating world, it's also smart to play it safe, and that alone could save you from a leaky airline. I mean, who would have thunk it, right? Bubblegum, you got to keep some Bazooka Joe on you. Actually, don't keep Bazooka Joe on you. You might dislocate your jaw on that shit. Get some Big League Chew, and the reason I say Big League Chew is no individual wrapper. You can pack that stuff like Red Man Chaw if you want to. You remember that stuff? That was my first experience with chewing tobacco, and it's not a fond one. We left some Texas racing stripes down our own 85 Bronco. And needless to say, when all of our parents saw it when we pulled back into the driveway, we had some chores to do, and then we didn't get to see each other for a week or so. So, but Big League Chew, go with that one. Trust me, it'll produce all the sticky gum you want, and the grape. It's got this little bit of a Dimetap flavor to it. I don't know if you guys remember Dimetap from being a kid, but I would have drank that shit out of a pint glass, and so I'm all about the Big League Chew grape. Too much information from me towards the end of this episode that is irrelevant to anything going on. Let me get to something that is relevant, because I normally mention it at the beginning of the show, but I didn't get to it this time. And when we don't have a lot of time, to be honest. We ate up all of our time today with those great interviews from Quincy, Travis, and Tony. So thank all three of you guys for that. And don't forget to go check out the website, man. Liquidtrucking.com is a phenomenal website. And we're fortunate enough as a podcast to have our own little corner of that website. Right at the top of the page, when you sign on to liquidtrucking.com, you will see a picture of me. It says, learn more about our podcast here, or something to that effect. And just click the button, and you will be taken immediately to a spot where you can listen to every single episode of the Liquid Trucking Podcast. If we get pictures from drivers, recipes, sometimes we'll share them up there. We want to honor any drivers or shout anybody out. That's where you're going to find it. Head on over to liquidtrucking.com, click that link, and come visit me and the podcast, man. We would love to have you. Again, I like to say this too. You can send me an email, podcast@liquidtrucking.com. In fact, I'm going to challenge you guys to send me a few emails. Before the next episode launches, I would like to get 5 emails from you guys. And I would like those emails to just tell me what you would like to hear more or less of on the Liquid Trucking Podcast. I can't guarantee I'm going to make it happen, but I want to hear that. It's a feedback that's very important from you guys. As I was just saying to Tony before we let him go, without you guys taking part in this podcast, it sucks, okay? I promise you, it's not that great with just me. That's why we want to constantly bring drivers and staff members of Liquid Trucking on. So make sure to go over and check out the website. But first and foremost, shoot me an email, podcast@liquidtrucking.com, and say, Marcus, this is what I want to hear more of, and this is what I want to hear less of. I would love to hear that from you guys. Thanks so much for being here for episode 62. It was a great episode, man. This one's going to go down in history as one of my favorites. Hope we did the same for you today. We'll see you next week for episode 63. Stay safe out there. Keep the shiny side up.
Thanks for tuning in and being the gold standard of drivers on the road. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and tune in next week for another episode of the Liquid Trucking Podcast.